My name is James Carter. I'm 38 years old, work in software development for a mid-sized tech company in Seattle. And until 6 months ago, I thought I had a rock-solid marriage. After 12 years, I believed our bond was unbreakable. Then my wife Sarah returned from a business trip glowing with happiness. Not for me, but for another man. The hidden lingerie secret phone calls and a silver bracelet with another man's engraving were just the beginning. When I discovered a joint bank account and plans for a Miami condo, I realized I wasn't losing my wife. I was escaping a master manipulator who had planned her exit for months. But two can play that game, and she never saw me coming. It started on a Tuesday night in October. Rain pounded against our windows. Typical Seattle weather. As I sat in our living room reviewing code on my laptop, the clock showed 11:45 p.m. Sarah wasn't due back from a 3-day business trip to Portland until the next afternoon, so I was surprised when I heard a car pull into our driveway. Through the window, I saw her stepping out of an Uber, laughing at something on her phone. Even from a distance, her face radiated a joy I hadn't seen in months. The door swung open, and there she stood, blonde hair damp from the rain, cheeks flushed with excitement. She jumped slightly when she saw me in the dimly lit living room. "James, you scared me," she said, her voice unusually high-pitched. "I thought you'd be asleep." I closed my laptop. "Came home early, huh? I thought your last meeting was tomorrow morning." She waved dismissively while typing on her phone. Oh, they cancelled some issue with the client. Since everything was wrapped up, I caught an earlier flight. She looked up briefly. "The presentation was a huge hit, by the way. Robert practically guaranteed we'll get the contract." I nodded, noticing she couldn't put her phone down. "That's great. Babe, congrats." "Thanks." Her phone buzzed and her face lit up again. "Sorry, just work stuff. Everyone's still hyped about how it went." Something felt off. Sarah had always been dedicated to her marketing career, but midnight tech celebrations weren't her style. "You seem really happy," I said, studying her face. "Must have been some presentation." "It was," she said, a little too enthusiastically. "Career-defining, maybe." She wheeled her suitcase toward our bedroom. "I'm going to unpack and shower. I smell like airplane." As she disappeared down the hallway, I sat there with a strange feeling in my gut. Sarah's trips were usually filled with boring meetings and mediocre hotel food, but she was practically floating. I was about to follow when I heard a muffled, "Oh no," from the bedroom, followed by frantic movement. "Everything okay in there?" I called out. "Fine," she answered too quickly. "Just dropped something?" When I reached the bedroom doorway, I found her kneeling by her open suitcase, hands trembling as she shoved something into the bottom drawer of her dresser. "What was that?" I asked. Sarah looked up, and for a split second, I saw fear in her eyes. "Nothing," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just some paperwork I didn't want to lose." She stood and kissed my cheek. "I'm going to shower now. It's been a long day." As the bathroom door closed, I stared at the dresser drawer, a knot forming in my stomach. 12 years of marriage had taught me one thing. Sarah was hiding something. And for the first time, I was afraid to find out what it was. I couldn't sleep that night. Sarah's unusual behavior replayed in my mind. Around 2 a.m., I heard the shower turn off, followed by her quiet footsteps as she slipped into bed beside me. I pretended to be asleep. The scent of her lavender body wash filled the air, but underneath it was another smell, a cologne that wasn't mine. By morning, Sarah had left for work. Her side of the bed, cold. A text explained she had an early meeting. Perfect timing. I walked to her dresser, staring at the bottom drawer. My hands trembled as I opened it. Guilt washed over me. In 12 years I'd never snooped through her things, but that look in her eyes last night told me something was wrong. Under a stack of winter sweaters, my fingers touched a small velvet box, larger than one for jewellery. Inside was an expensive-looking silver bracelet engraved with "Forever Starts Now, E." I didn't know any E. My stomach dropped. Below the box was a handwritten note on hotel stationery. "Last night was incredible. Can't wait for Miami next month. 3 days just us." It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. The flowing handwriting wasn't Sarah's. I sat on the edge of the bed, the evidence clutched in my hands. This wasn't a work thing. This was an affair I carefully replaced, everything making it look untouched. Then did something I'd never done before. I checked Sarah's iPad, left charging on our nightstand. Her iCloud messages synced automatically. There he was. Ethan. Pages of texts, each more intimate than the last, with heart emojis, late-night messages and photos. I couldn't bring myself to open. They'd been chatting for months. The most recent message from him sent last night. Did he suspect anything? Her reply, "Not a clue, he never notices anything." I felt physically ill. 12 years of marriage, and she thought I was too stupid to notice her affair. Worse. She'd been right until now. I took photos of the messages as evidence, then put everything back. My mind raced. I needed more information, but had to be smart. Confronting her now would lead to denials. That afternoon I called a private investigator named Mark, highly recommended for delicate domestic situations. His office was downtown, and he agreed to meet me that day. It was time to find out who Ethan was, and how deep this betrayal went. Mark's office was in a weathered brick building downtown. He was in his mid-50s with salt and pepper hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything. "So your wife is having an affair?" he stated matter-of-factly after I explained the situation. I winced at hearing it said aloud. "I think so, I need to be sure." Mark nodded. "People think they're careful, but they always make mistakes. Always." He pulled out a notepad. "I'll need your schedule, any information on this Ethan, access to your shared accounts, and anything else you can provide." I handed over a USB drive with everything I'd found, photos of text messages, Sarah's work schedule for the next 2 weeks, and our cell phone records. "There's a number she calls almost daily," I said, pointing to a highlighted line on the bill. "Started about 3 months ago." Mark whistled as he looked at the call durations. 60-minute calls during lunch breaks. Definitely not work-related. He ran the number through a database, Ethan Brooks, marketing executive at Stella Brand. My stomach dropped. Stella Brand was a client of Sarah's company. "Standard surveillance package is $2,500, Mark continued. "I'll track their movements, document meetings, and provide photographic evidence if there is any." 2 days later, I was living in a strange purgatory, going through the motions with Sarah, while knowing Mark was tracking her every move I acted. Normal. Kissed her goodbye in the mornings, and asked about her day. Sarah seemed to buy my act. If anything, she became more affectionate, bringing home my favourite takeout, and suggesting a weekend trip the following month. The guilt was written all over her, but I played along. "You seem distracted," she said one evening, massaging my shoulders as I pretended to work on my laptop. In reality, I was waiting for Mark's daily update, just a tough project at work. I lied, hating how easily the deception came. My phone buzzed with an email from Mark. "Bathroom break," I said, taking my phone with me. The email contained photos of Sarah and a man I didn't recognize entering a boutique hotel downtown, time-stamped that afternoon when she was supposedly at a client meeting. The final image showed them kissing in the hotel elevator. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. There it was, undeniable proof. The man destroying my marriage had a face now. I took a deep breath and returned to the living room where Sarah was curled up on the couch smiling at something on her phone. Probably texting him. "Everything okay?" she asked without looking up. "Fine," I replied, amazed at how steady my voice sounded when everything inside me was screaming. The game wasn't over. I needed to know how deep this went. The next morning, Sarah kissed me goodbye with mint-fresh breath and promises of dinner at our favourite restaurant that night. "I'll make a reservation for 7, she said, straightening my collar affectionately. "We've been so busy lately, we need some us time." I nodded, wondering if the us in her life still included me at all. As soon as her car disappeared down the street, I called Mark. "I need more," I said without preamble. "The hotel photos aren't enough. I need to know how long this has been going on and how serious it is." "Already on it," Mark replied. "I've got someone following Brooks too, and I've been digging into their digital footprint. They've been sloppy." That afternoon, Mark sent a detailed report. Ethan Brooks, 36, divorced, had joined Stella Brand 8 months ago around the time Sarah's business trips increased. Their first documented meeting outside work was at a conference in San Diego 5 months ago, but the bombshell came in the financial records. A joint checking account opened 3 months ago in both Sarah and Ethan's names with small regular deposits saving for something. Worse was an email Mark uncovered from Sarah's personal account to a real estate agent in Miami. "We're excited to view the waterfront properties next month, looking for something modern, 2 bedrooms minimum, budget to be discussed." I felt like I was falling down an endless hole. This wasn't just an affair. It was an exit strategy. When Sarah texted to cancel our dinner plans due to a client emergency, I almost laughed at the predictability Mark confirmed she was with Ethan at his apartment. I used the evening alone to formulate my plan. Confronting her now would lead to denials and half-truths. I needed to be strategic. Gather every piece of evidence before making my move. I consulted a lawyer friend who advised documenting everything and securing my finances immediately. Joint accounts can be drained without warning. He warned. I've seen it too many times. That night I transferred half our savings to a new account in my name. Not everything, but enough to protect myself from being left penniless. When Sarah came home around 11 p.m, she smelled of wine and that same cologne. "Sorry about dinner," she murmured, slipping into bed beside me. The Brighton client had a complete meltdown. "It's fine," I replied, turning away from her. "These things happen." As she fell asleep, I stared at the ceiling, Mark's words echoing in my mind. "I've saved the worst for our meeting tomorrow. Some things shouldn't be sent electronically. Whatever it was, I knew it would change everything." Mark's office seemed smaller the second time. Or maybe the weight of what I was about to learn made everything feel constricted. He had a folder and laptop ready. "Before I show you this," he said, voice grave, "I want to make sure you're prepared. This goes beyond what we initially thought." I nodded, steeling myself. "Just show me." Mark opened his laptop, clicking through photos. Sarah and Ethan entering hotels, sharing intimate dinners, walking arm in arm, standard affair stuff. He commented, "But now the concerning part?" He pulled up an email thread between Sarah and Ethan dated the previous day. Sarah wrote, "James has no clue about Miami. I'll tell him I have a week-long conference. By the time I get back, we'll have the offer ready on the condo. 3 more months max before I can make the full break." Ethan's response made my blood freeze. "Perfect. My transfer to the Miami office is confirmed. What about your exit strategy for the finances?" Sarah replied, "Working on it. Moving small amounts weekly. The joint account is building nicely. He never checks the statements." I felt physically ill. The woman I'd built a life with wasn't just cheating. She was dismantling our life while planning her new one. "There's more," Mark said quietly, pulling out a legal document. "They've been meeting with a realtor in Miami. This is a pre-approval for a mortgage in both their names." I stared at the document, the implications hitting like a truck. "She's leaving me. This was never just an affair." Mark nodded grimly. "Based on everything I've gathered, They've been planning this for at least 3 months. The Miami trip next month isn't just a getaway. They're finalizing their plans. What about our assets? I asked, suddenly terrified. She'd clean me out. She's been methodical, Mark confirmed. Small transfers, nothing suspicious, but it adds up. By my calculation, she's moved about $40,000 from your joint accounts over the last few months. I remembered the new car she'd insisted on buying last year in her name, only the investment account she'd opened for tax purposes. It had all been leading to this one last thing, Mark said, pulling out his phone. This is audio from a reservation they made at a restaurant in Miami for next month. He pressed play. Sarah's voice came through clearly. That sounds perfect. It'll be our first official dinner as a couple in our new city. No more hiding. I sat in stunned silence as Mark laid out my options. Confrontation, divorce, legal protections for remaining assets. All I could think was 12 years of marriage, and I never really knew her at all. For the next week, I lived in a strange twilight zone, going through the motions of normal life while preparing for its collapse. Every smile Sarah gave me, every casual touch felt like another twist of the knife. She played the role of devoted wife while counting down the days until her escape. I consulted a divorce attorney, Emily, who specialized in cases involving financial deception. Unfortunately, this is textbook, she said after reviewing Mark's evidence. She's been planning this for months, maybe longer. We need to act fast to protect your remaining assets. I signed paperwork giving Emily authority to freeze our joint accounts if necessary. I documented everything: bank statements, property, deeds, retirement accounts. What about confronting her? I asked. Emily's expression turned cautious. That's your decision, but strategically we'd be in a stronger position if she doesn't know you're onto her until we've secured the financial aspects. I knew she was right, but continuing this charade was unbearable. At home, Sarah stepped up her performance, suggesting a week-long getaway to reconnect. Initiating sex for the first time in months, even mentioning starting a family next year, all while planning to be in Miami with another man. The audacity was staggering. Mark continued his surveillance, providing daily updates. The Miami trip was fully booked. Sarah had requested time off work for her conference. Meanwhile, Ethan had put his condo on the market and begun shipping items to a storage facility in Florida. They were really doing this. I carefully documented my work schedule, creating a digital trail, proving I'd been at the office during key times. Emily had warned that cheating spouses often make counter-accusations when exposed. Be prepared for everything, she advised. When cornered people get desperate. On Friday, Sarah announced she needed to work late. Mark's text confirmed she was meeting Ethan at a downtown hotel. I used the time alone to finalize my plan. The confrontation needed to be controlled with irrefutable evidence. Presented methodically, leaving no room for denials or gaslighting. I arranged printed emails, bank statements and photos in a folder, backed up Mark's recordings to multiple devices, and rehearsed what I would say, searching for words to express the magnitude of her betrayal. When Sarah returned after midnight, I pretended to be asleep. She showered before coming to bed, washing away evidence of her evening tomorrow. I'd let her make her Miami plans, then show her exactly how clueless I wasn't. Saturday morning arrived with a strange calm. I'd barely slept, but felt oddly clear-headed. Today, Sarah's carefully constructed world would collapse. She was cheerful at breakfast, talking about a spa day with her friend Rachel. Another lie. Mark confirmed she was meeting Ethan to finalize their Miami plans. I'll be back around 6, she said, kissing my cheek. Maybe we could do dinner out tonight. Perfect, I replied. I'll make a reservation at Bistro at 7:30. Her eyes lit up. Our anniversary spot. What's the occasion? Just thought we should talk about a few things, I said casually. A flicker of concern crossed her face, quickly replaced by her practiced smile. "Sounds great, see you tonight." After she left, I transformed our dining room into what Emily called an evidence room. Printed emails arranged chronologically. Bank statements, highlighting suspicious transfers. Photos of Sarah and Ethan entering hotels. The mortgage pre-approval for their Miami condo. All meticulously organized. At 6:15, I heard her key in the lock. I sat at the dining room table. The evidence spread before me, a glass of scotch in my hand. Sarah froze in the doorway, her face shifting from confusion to shock as she processed the scene. "James, what is all this?" Her voice aimed for innocence but landed on panic. "Sit down, Sarah. I don't understand." "Sit down." She slowly lowered herself into a chair, eyes darting over the documents. "How long were you planning to string me along?" I asked. "Until the Miami condo closed, or were you going to wait until you drained our accounts completely?" The colour drained from her face. "I can explain. Ethan Brooks explains it pretty well," I said, sliding over photos of them together. "So does this joint bank account, these real estate listings, and this mortgage application." Her hands trembled as she stared at the evidence. "When were you going to tell me, Sarah? After your conference next month, or was I going to come home to an empty house and divorce papers?" "It's not what it looks like," she attempted, but her voice lacked conviction. I played the audio recording Mark had captured. "That sounds perfect. It'll be our first official dinner as a couple in our new city. No more hiding." Tears welled in her eyes. "James, please." "No more lies, Sarah. It's over. I've consulted a lawyer. I've documented the $40,000 you've siphoned from our accounts. I've secured our assets. You had me followed." Indignation flashed through her tears. "That's your takeaway from this?" I laughed humorlessly. 12 years, Sarah. 12 years, and you threw it away for a waterfront property and some marketing executive. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way," she whispered. "I never meant to hurt you, yet you planned it meticulously for months." I stood. "I've booked you a hotel room tonight. Pack what you need. The locks will be changed tomorrow." "James, we need to talk about this." "We're beyond talking. We're at the part where you leave." I placed the hotel reservation next to the evidence. "Your conference just got moved up." Sarah left that night, mascara streaking her face, a hastily packed suitcase trailing behind her. The house felt emptier than I expected. Not just because she was gone, but because I realized how hollow our life together had been for months. The next morning, Emily called to confirm Sarah had withdrawn a $5,000 cash advance from her personal credit card, an act of desperation. She'd also tried to access our joint investment account, only to find it frozen. "She's panicking," Emily noted. "That's good for us. Has she contacted you?" 27 text messages and 14 missed calls. I replied. "I haven't responded." Perfect, let her stew. 2 days later, Mark reported Sarah had moved into Ethan's apartment. They'd cancelled their Miami trip, likely realizing their escape plan had imploded. That week was a blur of legal meetings and paperwork. Emily filed for divorce on grounds of adultery, with comprehensive evidence of financial deception. We also filed for an emergency court order regarding the siphoned funds. "Judges don't look kindly on hidden assets," Emily explained, "especially with this level of documentation." At work, I requested a temporary assignment to our San Diego office. I needed distance from Seattle and its memories. My boss, noting my haggard appearance, approved it immediately. Sarah's first direct contact came via email subject line. "Please read this." She wrote, "I never meant for any of this to happen. Ethan was supposed to be a fling, but it evolved. I still care about you, James. We should talk about separating amicably." Emily advised against responding. "This is damage control. She realizes she's lost the upper hand." A week into our separation, things escalated. Sarah showed up at our house, finding the locks changed. Neighbours reported her screaming on the porch, demanding entry. When I didn't respond, she called mutual friends, painting herself as the victim of my controlling behaviour and unfounded accusations. Fortunately, I'd shared the basic truth with close friends, and their support was my lifeline. Ethan reached out next, a move I hadn't anticipated. Sarah misrepresented her marital situation to me. He claimed in a carefully worded email, "I believed your relationship was effectively over. I can provide information that may be helpful in your divorce proceedings." Mark wasn't surprised. "The ship is sinking and he's looking for a lifeboat." As it turned out, Sarah had told Ethan I knew about their affair and had agreed to an amicable split. She presented the money she moved as her fair share of our assets when faced with being named in the divorce proceedings. Ethan threw Sarah under the bus. Through it all, I kept breathing, kept working, kept putting one foot in front of the other. The betrayal still cut deep, but each day brought incremental healing and the growing certainty that I'd saved myself from years of further deception. 3 months after confronting Sarah, I sat in Emily's office signing the final divorce papers. The process was faster and cleaner than expected, largely due to the overwhelming evidence. The judge was unimpressed by the hidden accounts, and the ruling reflected that I received the house, my full retirement accounts and restitution for the diverted funds. Sarah kept her car, personal possessions, and the stark reality of her choices. "Have you heard from her?" Emily asked. "Not directly. Mutual friends say she and Ethan broke up a month ago. Apparently once the thrill of sneaking around was gone, so was the magic." Emily nodded, unsurprised. Relationships built on deception rarely survive exposure to daylight. My temporary assignment in San Diego became permanent at my request. Seattle held too many memories, and the California office needed an experienced project lead. The beachfront apartment I rented was smaller than my Seattle house, but felt more like home than anywhere I'd lived in years. That weekend I sorted through what remained of my married life. Emily had arranged for a moving company to pack and ship essential belongings. Everything else would be sold or donated. As I sorted through books and kitchenware, deciding what deserved space in my new life, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Ethan Brooks. I know you have no reason to talk to me, but there's something you should know about Sarah's current activities." I deleted it without responding. Their drama was no longer my concern. The Seattle house sold above asking price in a hot market. I donated most of the furniture to a shelter for domestic violence. Survivors finding poetic justice in the gesture. Work became my sanctuary. I took on challenging projects, stayed late, developing new systems, and slowly rebuilt my professional confidence. My personal life remained deliberately quiet. I wasn't ready to trust anyone yet. 6 months post-divorce. My team celebrated landing a major client with drinks at a beachfront bar. I was nursing a beer, half listening to office gossip, when a woman accidentally bumped into me, spilling her drink. "I'm so sorry," she exclaimed, grabbing napkins to blot my shirt. "No harm done," I assured her, helping clean up. Her name was Sophie, a marine biologist at a nearby research center. She'd never been married and laughed easily. We exchanged numbers cautiously, with no expectations. 2 days later, we met for coffee. The conversation flowed naturally, without pretense or agenda. For the first time in nearly a year, I felt something long dormant stir. Hope I wasn't ready to fully trust again. But sitting across from Sophie, watching her describe her work with animated enthusiasm, I realized I was ready to try. 1 year after signing the divorce papers, I stood on the balcony of my San Diego apartment, watching the sunset paint the Pacific in shades of gold and crimson. So much had changed. Yet sometimes I still woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting the collapse of my marriage and the life I'd rebuilt. The legal epilogue to Sarah's betrayal concluded uneventfully. She contested nothing after Ethan's testimony corroborated her planning. The last I'd heard, she'd moved to Chicago, not Miami, and was working for a smaller firm. Her grand escape plan had evaporated like morning mist. My career flourished in San Diego. The change of scenery sparked creativity I hadn't accessed in years, leading to a promotion and industry recognition for a major software solution. My team developed. And then there was Sophie. Our coffee date led to dinners, weekend hikes along the coast, comfortable silences, and meaningful conversations. We moved slowly, deliberately, both carrying lessons from past relationships. "What are you thinking about so intensely?" Sophie asked, joining me on the balcony with 2 glasses of wine. "How different life looks from a year ago." I answered honestly, accepting a glass. "How unexpected the journey has been." She smiled, understanding in her eyes. 6 months into our relationship, I'd shared the full story of Sarah's betrayal. Sophie listened without judgment, then shared her own past heartbreaks. "To unexpected journeys," she said, raising her glass. We clinked glasses, watching the last sliver of sun disappear beneath the horizon. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with an email from Emily, forwarding a message from Sarah. "I know it's been a long time. I've been doing a lot of thinking and therapy. I realize now how badly I hurt you. While apologies can't change that, I need you to know I'm truly sorry for the pain I caused." I stared at the words, surprised by the lack of emotion they stirred. No anger, no lingering hurt, just acknowledgement of a closed chapter. "Everything okay?" Sophie asked, noting my expression. "Yeah," I said, setting the phone down without responding. "Just the past saying goodbye." That night, as Sophie slept beside me, I reflected on the strange path life had taken. The betrayal that once seemed like the end of everything had been the beginning of something authentic. Without Sarah's deception, I might never have found the courage to rebuild, relocate, or open myself to new possibilities. In losing what I thought was essential, I discovered what truly mattered: integrity, self-respect, and the quiet joy of genuine connection. As I drifted toward sleep, I realized something surprising. I was grateful not for the betrayal, but for the stronger version of myself that emerged from its ashes. The man I became was more authentic, resilient, and capable of true intimacy than the man I'd been before. Sometimes the harshest endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings.